Thank you.
Okay.
Today we are focusing on food security, and both of our speakers will cover this issue. Julie is the club president from the Zonta Club of Fort Collins in Colorado, USA. She also serves as a co-chair of as the chair of the District 12 Actions for Environment and Gender Equal Committee, co-chair of the Zonta USA Caucus Gender Equal Climate Change Committee, and a member of the international work group Zonta Says Now. Julie has worked in education and communications her entire career, starting in a media production company which spanned 10 years of live and recorded video productions. Her career as a nutritionist and wellness educator followed and continued until 2022, when she retired. Along the way, she gave birth to twin boys. One of her sons had severe food allergies, hence Julie created a food allergy education and safety support website, Allergy Free Table, and wrote 3 pocket guides for teachers, parents, and grandparents so they could manage food allergies anywhere. Now she spends her time outdoors with her family and dog, where she is not in front of the computer, focused on her many roles of Zonta Says Now and her club duties. Farida Lukmanjee, I apologize if I said that wrong, is a member of the Zonta Club of Newport Harbour in Colorado, or in California, USA. C words are bothering me today, I guess. Farida is originally from India and settled in Sri Lanka for 21 years. She has been a Zontian for 15 years and a foundation ambassador for 2 bienniums, and now is the advocacy chair of the Zonta Club of Newport Harbour. She has been instrumental in many projects concerning violence against women, education, health, and climate change effect on women and children. Farida is a corporate social responsible consultant who manages projects for corporations to have a sustainable impact on communities. Currently, she is working with the women in Sri Lanka, empowering the future of female farmers through the She Grows the World program that she founded. This provides women with sustainable farming techniques, which helps them to produce food and obtain an income. Please use the chat line if you have any questions. So now, Julie, please begin.
Thanks, everyone. So glad to see you all here today. It's a pleasure, and a pleasure to talk about food and water insecurity. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Food and water insecurity. So let's talk a little bit about how climate change worsens an existing problem. And as we all know, food and water insecurity is already happening around the globe, and for a long time in some areas of the globe, and it's worsening in many areas of the globe for many reasons. One is climate change. So what is food insecurity? This is a technical term, food insecurity. So here are the 3 areas, just a brief on food insecurity, but it's actually the condition of not having access to sufficient nutritious food to adequately eat the proper number of calories per day to meet one's basic needs consistently. They call that undernourished, and a lot of the UN research is about undernourishment with food insecurity and how they project it's going to worsen over time. Food insecurity affects the nutritional quality of food, the availability of food, and the stability of food systems. And we saw that during COVID. Food systems broke down with truckers, maybe processing and other things, so there wasn't as much food on the shelves. That is actually a glimpse of what they project will occur with worsening climate conditions. Some of the faces of food insecurity are chronic and long-term, which causes hunger and malnutrition, and we're seeing that expand in our world. And then there's transitory, temporary, and seasonal hunger causing undernourishment and can lead to malnutrition as well. This little chart was from 2020, which is right when COVID and the pandemic was circling the world, and it talks about what food insecurity is versus hunger. So let's talk about more time closer to us of what's happening now. In 2022, they found between 691 and 783 million people worldwide faced a form of hunger, which would be undernourishment, chronic hunger, temporary hunger, seasonal hunger, with 238 million facing acute food insecurity, which means they don't have enough food available to have daily meals. The projection for 2030 is the scary part. Nearly 670 million will be chronically undernourished or food insecure. And that doesn't mean we just can't get a hold of food. It has to do with our choices of food, and it has to do with processing food, and it has to do with the quality of food, which is becoming less enriched with nutrients because of the quality of our soil. Here's a snapshot of two of the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN. The two that were important for today is one, no poverty, because food insecurity and water insecurity increase poverty. If the trend continues, as you can see, by 2030, 340 million women and girls will still live in extreme poverty. The stat that really shocked me was the one below that about how the progress to improve our climate needs to be 26 times faster than we are working right now to reach the no poverty goal. It's actually increasing because of conflict right now, also the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and now in Israel and Gaza. And there are a few others that I didn't mention. Zero hunger. Well, that's pretty much what we're talking about today, is let's empower women and figure out how we can achieve zero hunger. But 1 in 4 women and girls are expected to be moderately or severely food insecure by 2030. And there are statistics you can find online that show how women chronically receive less food globally than men do across the board. So what is water insecurity? We talked a little bit about food, and this is water. Water insecurity is also called water scarcity. So you may hear that term more frequently than you hear water insecurity. It means water, safe drinking and cooking water, is unavailable, and it's happening all over the globe due to the severe climate conditions and drought. That is a climate condition, but that's something that we may not think about. We think of the floods and the tornadoes and the blizzards and the other, fires, but drought is actually the biggest and most abundant issue that we're dealing with worldwide. So how is that impacted with climate change? Just so that everyone understands, 0.5% of all water on Earth is fresh water, available for drinking, cleaning, and cooking. Agriculture alone consumes 70% of fresh water usage globally. And a lot of people aren't aware that we have underground water called aquifers, and they do find new ones here and there. I'll give you an example of an aquifer and why it's what's happening. Agriculture pulls water out of aquifers, and this is happening globally. There's one very large one near Colorado, USA, where I live. It's called the Ogallala Aquifer. It is depleted by 40%. And they say it's going to take up to 6,000 years to fill it back up, which you see in the fourth square, how slow refilling is. And the more drought there is and other issues, you reduce your aquifer, and then it's not sustainable. So climate change, obviously, we all know this. I'm preaching to the choir. It increases water and food scarcity. So we have water, soil, and sun, three necessities for growing crops. But if we don't have any water, we don't have any food. We don't have safe water to use on our crops, we have no food. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Water is the gold, and food is the silver, and they're both precious metals, and they're both precious commodities, and they are becoming the most precious in the world. So as climate has changed, it disrupts precipitation patterns, and the water cycle causes the scarcity. It changes, it creates lack of water, like I was saying, drought, and it creates unsafe drinking water as a result of flooding. That is one of the reasons. So as you see on the third one, some of the issues that produce scarcity, and then it affects the quality of the soil. And I could probably do a whole talk on soil quality, but I won't. We'll do that another time. But just know that poor soil is very evident around the world, but there are ways to make that better. So here's what can be done. Water security actually needs to be at the forefront of climate policy. This is really important for Zontians to really advocate for water security and really look into what is happening, how is water being used, and how it's being wasted. Innovative financing for water resource management, that is key, because water is going to get more and more expensive, and we need to be able to find more resources or develop new ways, as you see in the third box, redevelop agricultural practices, because there are ways to do that to become water wise and actually to pull carbon out of the air, and that helps our climate, and then that brings in more rain. And then protect water from pollutants. That's a big advocacy deal. And I know there are some Zontians that have worked very, very seriously on this issue in their local communities, and it works legislatively. And reusing wastewater, how can your community do that? And protecting and creating sustainable use groundwater from the aquifers. Now, the next slide is about Farida. And let me tell you, she has been working so hard and so well with some farmers in Sri Lanka. She's going to tell you her story on some of the answers to food and water insecurity. So I'm going to throw it over to Farida Lukmanjee to tell you her story. I'm so happy you're here, Farida.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Farida Lukmanjee. Thank you very much, Julie. You have actually covered it up so beautifully. I cannot express like how beautifully you have, covered every aspect. And what you specified thing was you were talking about the hydrological cycle, which is getting messed up, which people do not understand, that the flow of the incoming water and the outflow is so much that we will have water scarcity very soon in the world. So it's basically we have to find ways to fix the hydrological cycle of the earth. So, okay, let me tell you a little bit how this whole thing started. When we say charity begins at home, okay? So I said, okay, let me start, because when Zonta kept on saying, Zonta says now, Zonta says now. So I said, okay, let's do it. So how do we do it? So enough of talking, and let's start taking action. So I'm going to give you a little bit of, what I have done in the past 3 years. All right. Okay. So what I did is I was thinking, okay, what do we do? Everybody's talking about food scarcity. Everybody's talking about water. So this started from my 40th birthday. When I was turning 40, I thought, okay, what do I do interesting? I didn't want to do the normal parties and all. I have been doing it for a lifetime. So I came up with a project where I would give clean and safe drinking water to one village, which was a female-headed village in Sri Lanka. And that village was where there were no men because all the men were killed in the Sri Lankan war. Okay. So it started with that. So how does the clean water reach? Women have to walk for over 10 miles a day just to go and get 2 pots of clean drinking water. So for me, what I do is I get the pipelines to bring the clean drinking water right to where they are. So my project covers the infrastructure of getting the water pipelines to them. Then came the concept of She Grows in the World. What happens in She Grows in the World? Land owned by farmers, or land owned even by males or females. The land, whenever they grow anything, the women were never getting enough opportunity to reap the harvest of the hard work they have done. So what She Grows in the World has started doing is we are giving them clean water. So I give them water pipelines where they have clean water for the fields and for their personal use, right? Second comes sustainable food resources. Sri Lanka is very rich in its soil. So all kinds of food can be grown. When we grow the food there, and now these farms are now farmed only by female farmers. We only get the males to come in for very hard jobs, but they are coming only on paid, like when they're temporarily paid. But the permanent workers are the female farmers. So basically, my project, which you can see is these are some of the seeds. Seeds is a very important part of farming. Unless you don't have good seeds, you won't have a good harvest. So the first slide that you see is where the women are all sorting out the seeds to have a better harvest for the next year. Okay, agricultural development and natural fertilizer sources. Now, when we are talking about the soil quality, no matter how good the soil is, we have to put fertilizers. Sri Lanka was importing fertilizers at a very high price. These women cannot afford these kind of fertilizers. So I found a gentleman by the name of Saman Hettiarachchi, who is a scientist in Sri Lanka and who has a patent to do the compost. So along with him and me, we created a small unit where we would prepare our own fertilizers. Can we go to the next slide, please, Carol? Okay. So this is now a little bit on the fertilizer part of it. So what you see with where these women are sitting and they are moving around, this is when the crop has already been harvested. You see this whole thing is taken and put into a mixture, and it is mixed with nitrogen to produce natural fertilizer. So what happens is the women don't have to pay for their own fertilizer. Once there's excess fertilizer, they can sell it so they have means of income. And at the same time, what we also are promoting now, because if there are water bodies where the farms are, we are also promoting fish farming, so that we have two kinds of food coming, the crops as well as the proteins which you get from the fish. So fish farming, we will talk about it at a later stage. I have more information on that, but we will talk about it later. So our project actually aligns with the Zonta Foundation mission to empower women worldwide and promote gender equality and Zonta's fight against climate change and its effects. So what we do is we do rotating crops. I think, Julie, you will understand exactly what I'm saying. When we do rotating crops, what happens is it does not take away everything from the soil with one crop. So what happens is 3 months of the year, they grow chilies. Once the chili crop is done, then they get money from that crop, which puts in money to put the brinjals or the aubergines, as you call it. Then the aubergines are grown. But the main crop is basically the bananas, the peppers, and the mangoes. So while those are growing, we need something to sustain. So these women get sustained by the rotating crops, which do not spoil the quality of the soil that we have. We need to do this as a bigger group. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is this is a live project. It's working. It has worked, right? What we can duplicate this project in all parts of the world. The structure is ready. I have already had everything structured, knowing. So Southeast Asia, we are ready to go. And we can ask certain corporates to join with us in our fight against climate control, because nowadays a lot of corporates are talking about climate control. So let's club in along with Zonta and other corporates who would want to who would want to be with us in our fight against climate control. One thing which I want to just say is, by promoting natural fertilizers, the project will reduce the reliance on synthetic fertilizers and reduce environmental degradation. So by using the natural fertilizers, we are not harming the soil anymore. We are making the soil more richer and richer and richer. So let me tell you how these women handle everything. By the end of every crop, I have made a chain for them to go to the local market and go and sell their produce. When the local market buys their produce, the money that they get, now it is a chain which they follow. They buy their seeds, or now they are growing their own seeds. So it is a cycle. And in the third year of this project, we are more or less independent from anything. And it's a self-sustaining. Why I'm talking about self-sustaining is, we have to stop the practice of keeping on giving. Do one project, make it good enough that it sustains itself. Okay, then we also give can we have the next slide, please? Yes. So with this project, I'm also giving a lot of training to the women. We have the experienced farmers who come and teach these women. Okay, as you can see on the screen, seeds are provided, fertilizer is provided, and so is the agricultural tools. We conserve water by using drip irrigation method. But what I mean by drip irrigation is, there is a pipe going through where the water goes. Instead of it just no sprinklers, we have just small holes in the pipe, so that there is little water going, because the excess water is anyway going to get wasted. So we have measured how much water is required, and we give only that much water. So over 100,000 households can be benefited if we get more people to join in into this She Grows in the World. So besides training, tools, resources, I'm also promoting sustainable and organic farming and prioritizing health and natural fertilizers, because with the natural fertilizers, we get a better crop. Sustainable farming is a concept where you do not have to depend on external sources at all given times for everything. Whatever you need, you should be able to produce it in your farm, from the seeds to the fertilizers to everything that is required, to the packaging, everything. Which my packaging is not yet sorted, but I'm working on it. Hopefully in my next presentation, I should be able to talk to you all about how the packaging of the finished goods is done. Can we just have the next one, please? Okay. So construction and rehabilitation of water sources, that I've already spoken about. We are providing seeds, fertilizers, and agricultural tools. Provide women's empowerment program. I personally want to tell you how I have personally impacted 25 women. These 25 women in this last 2 years are now having their kids going to school. They are doing everything which they wanted to do, because now they have that extra income. Plus, they do not have to wait for somebody to bring home the food or anything. Because if there is nothing which is cooked at home, they go to the farms, they take the raw, they'll take the raw bananas and they'll cook it as a vegetable. Okay, the raw pepper is cooked as a vegetable. The fruits which we get out of the out of the harvest are used, or they can be, or they go and sell it. So I can assure you that the women who have been working in my farms are now so independent that they are running this whole thing on their own. I am here, I live in the United States now. They're remotely handling the project and they're doing it very, very well. I'll update you all very soon about it. Carol, can we have that video that I wanted to share? This video is basically done by a group of French uh, journalists who came, and they have shot this on my fields and in my farms, just to give you what is the plight of women in Sri Lanka and how this was before the project, and now this is what is it now. You can just see this, please.
Once a week, Nazima goes shopping in the Maradana district of Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka. She and her husband earn less than 150 euros per month. It doesn't leave them with much choice.
කවලතානේ අදෝල පඩික වෙක්කොන් මේ ඉන්න මෙලන් සින්න පුලේලේ මුතු මවණක පයි මූණේ පයිනාලේ රෙන්ඩා මවණක 9 මූණාදක මූණාර.
Nazima shares this 3-bedroom flat with 2 other families. They even share a fridge. It's the only way of cutting their living costs.
පඩික වෙක්කරේ නාල සල්ලි තානේ ඕන. සුම්ම පඩිකේලා ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ. පෝ එපඩි ආවමු පරි කොഞ്ഞம் කාලෙවිද ආහ පොරපෝ කොල පොරපෝ කෙනා කස්ටමයිද ඉහිද තලව තූකේ මුඩියාම.
Sri Lanka is currently facing a severe economic crisis, causing many people to go hungry. This country, with its population of 22 million people, is shouldering a horrendous amount of debt and isn't able to pay it back. Ever since the value of the rupee dropped a year ago, inflation has hit record heights. Whether it was for fuel, medication or food, prices had increased by nearly 60% by last December. Manning Market, the capital's largest marketplace, has seen a decline in footfall. Prices have shot up uncontrollably. They change daily, depending on supply and market rates. Tomatoes have tripled in price. Carrots and beans have doubled. Sellers are struggling to shift their stock. Before the crisis, they were used to selling 25 tons of produce. Today, they are barely managing to get half of that. Agriculture makes up a significant part of the country's economy. Productivity has sunk by 50% over the course of a year. Vegetables are often in short supply. Potatoes sometimes need to be imported from India or China. Other products such as manioc are now scarcely available. The lack of food threatens the poorest sectors of the country's population the most.
We had a crop and food security assessment mission run by FAO and World Food Program, which found that about 66,000 people were actually suffering from severe hunger situation, and about 6.3 million people in the country were facing likely hunger situations. So it is a large number. It's nearly 1/3 of the country's population, which is susceptible to hunger today. Now, these are mostly poor people in the rural areas and also urban poor. People who were working with small and medium enterprises who lost their jobs, people who were daily wage workers who are suffering on account of the rising prices and the economic crisis in the country. Of course, the smallholder farmers, amongst which women and children also have suffered a lot.
It's lunchtime in Kirowanaganga, a village in the southwest of the country. Since the summer, they've been running a community kitchen in the village hall. Around 60 people aged between 5 and 80 years old are waiting for food. Every day at the same time, they come here for a free meal. For most of them, it will be their only meal of the day.
They do not have the 3 meals habit. With the current precision, even having 1 meal also a challenge. So currently what we are doing is with the community kitchen, we give them a meal for the lunch. So they survive from the lunch meal the whole day most of the times. We do have the malnutrition very high in these areas. So we are concerned about a fully fledged nutritious meal. And today actually we provided 4 vegetables and animal protein. So we serve them chicken.
In the past 6 months, 9 community kitchens have opened to tackle famine in the country's poorest regions. There are plans to open at least 3 more in the coming weeks, primarily in Colombo. They are organized by members of the NGO Ceylon Youth Movement, which supports disadvantaged children. Each day, their 550 helpers provide around 800 meals. Children are served first. Shalomi is 5 years old and doesn't leave a scrap on her plate. Her parents work on a tea plantation. They send her to the community kitchen every day so she can be well fed.
நாங்கள் சாப்பாடு நேரத்தை கூட 2 நேரம் மேலே நாங்கள் சாப்பிட்டு இதுங்களை கிளாஸ் போகணும் ரெண்டுமே கிளம்பையில 3 நாளைக்கு போகணும் அதுக்கு ஒரு 2 ஹவருக்கு 200 நாங்கள் காசு கட்டணும் 2 ஹவர் பந்திக்கு அதனால தான் முக்கியமே நாங்கள் இந்த சாப்பாடை பற்றி அவ்வளோ நினைக்கல இது நல்லா படிச்சிருக்கு.
They live off just £4.50 per day. That isn't enough to feed the whole family.
ஒரு நாளுன்ட்டுல நீ ஒரு நாளுன்ட்டுனா அப்படி இல்லை.
நான் நினைக்கிறேன் பிள்ளைங்களை படிக்க வச்ச பிறகு பிள்ளைங்க மூலியமாக அந்த பிள்ளைங்க ஒரு தட்டுக்கு வரும் தானே படிக்க வச்சா நம்ம மாதிரியே கஷ்டப்படாங்க தானே பிள்ளைங்க.
என்னதான் பண்ணி இப்படியே இருக்குது. ஆனால் இங்கே இருக்கிறவங்க முக்கியமாக வெளியூருக்கு தான் போகிறாங்க. நீ பொம்பளை பொண்ணு விட்டும் போயலாத்தானே என்னத்தான் செய்ய.
According to the Sri Lankan government, 300,000 citizens have left the country since the beginning of the crisis. Most of them had no choice but to emigrate.
Ladies, I want to introduce somebody who is my partner in Africa. So I have partnered with Betty. Betty, are you there? So she is heading a whole female farming group in Africa. And she and me are now getting together to promote more and better means of, so I will be sending the seeds from Sri Lanka to Betty in Africa, and Africa will grow. And the same way I'm trying to do international trade between countries where there is a need and a demand. So Betty is here with us today, and she heads a whole group of female farmers in Kenya.
Hi, Zonta. I am Betty, and we've partnered with Farida. Farida has been teaching us how to conserve good soil, so the production of crops. We are currently doing chilies and onions and experiencing exactly the same problems she described there before, the prices of seeds being very expensive. So she's able to help us with water conservation and soil saving. So we are looking towards this journey with her for longer, because we have touched more than 250 families, stretching from the northern Kenya, where it's semi-arid, to Kajiado, which is feeding most of Nairobi, and Laikipia area, which is very close to the mountains, and at the same time, you have the equator stretching right there. So during the drought season, you can really feel the heat. But with the solutions that she's given us in water, we are able to conserve water for the growing seasons, from season to season. And if we get further support, we are able to continue growing trees and foodstuff at the same time, because they share the same amount of water. In Africa, water is a luxury. If I shower with the water, I don't just dispose of that water. The food crops do not feel the pressure of the soap, so they can share the same water. And so does the tree, that tomorrow will be somebody else's shade, or it will bring up the fruits that people can take to the market, and feedlots for the livestock around the home. So you have a win-win situation. And we're looking further for deeper cooperation with Zonta. Thank you very much, Farida, for your support.
So thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
Florence Fisher Herber says, how do you get the money to launch these projects?
Moment, whatever I have done it on my personal level. So like right now, I am going to launch a campaign where I am going to ask all the corporates. As I already mentioned before, that a lot of the corporates like Coca-Cola, they do projects in water. Pepsi, they do projects in water. You get it? So we have to start approaching people, like for example, if I go to Quaker Oats, they will want to do they will want to do a CSR. When I talk about a CSR, is a corporate social responsibility project. They want to do, all corporates have their area of what they want to spend money of their charity money, or the money that they want to do as a responsibility project. So we can tap these corporates and and align our goals with them, so that, in my words, we say piggyback with them, so that we can move forward faster. So we have to now look at getting a network of corporates who can sponsor these projects. And the community kitchen, which you all saw on the video, is also another aspect which we can look at, where we can get community kitchens set up, because that setup is relatively more easier than doing the whole thing. So if we can't do the whole thing on our own, then even if we can get some corporates to facilitate the community kitchens, that will be some sort of a solution at the moment, but that will be a band-aid. Hope I answered your question.